Not too long ago, we had the regular Prius hybrid on the channel, and thanks to all of you who watched that video, it was quite popular. This time we have the Prius Prime, which is the plug-in hybrid, meaning it can drive on electricity alone for a little over 40 miles actually. But there's a lot more changes and differences than just that plug-in piece from the Prime to the regular hybrid, and that's actually what we're going to go over today. So today we're going to take a look outside. Inside, I'm going to show you about some of those differences that are in fact present from Prime to regular car. We're not going to throw a bike in the back because we already did that last time, but what we are going to do is take this thing for a snowy drive and see how it handles inclement weather. And last but not least, we're going to take it on the road once that snow thaws so we can see on a daily basis what this thing is like to drive. Telling the Prime apart from the regular Prius is quite hard, sans some badging on the back of this thing. That is to say, though, that this is a very good looking car, regardless if you're getting the Prime or the hybrid. A lot of people seem to be drawn to this, and I've heard people say, hey, the Prius no longer looks horrible. And I would tend to agree, especially here in Reservoir Blue. This is a beautiful deep blue color that I'm a big fan of. The other thing that's worth noting that I really like about this car specifically is that this is an SE, meaning it is the base model. So we get to see, with no options added, what we're offering here. Now this car has these very fuel efficient looking wheels as well. You can step up with higher trim level models to get rid of those, but for most fuel economy, these are the ones that you want. Between the regular Prius hybrid and this plug-in hybrid, the mechanical changes are really the big differences. This gets a 13.6 kilowatt hour battery. That's much bigger than the battery that you would get in the regular Prius, and that allows this vehicle to drive up to 44 miles. Now in real world, especially on cold days like this, you're not going to be getting that much, but it is nice to be able to plug this thing in and drive solely on electricity. Now, the total horsepower, 220 horsepower combined with the gas engine and electric motor. Now, one thing to note is that when you're just driving on electricity alone, you're not getting that 220 horsepower, right? You're just getting the electric motor. So we'll be curious to see what that equates to speed-wise once we get on the drive. The other big thing worth mentioning here is that the Prius Prime, regardless of what trim you get, all the way up to the Limited, is front-wheel drive only. This is something that we're going to focus on when we drive this thing in the snow, but the regular Prius you can get in all-wheel drive. Now, of course, everyone wants to know about fuel economy because that is the big thing that these Priuses are known for. If you're driving along on electricity alone, obviously your efficiency is going to be fantastic, but if you do use just the gas alone, you're going to get, in this SE model, about 52 miles to the gallon combined. I've already mentioned that this is the base version, so it is nice to get a reference point before you start adding options as to what this car is like. Before we get going though, if you want a full in-depth look at the Prius interior, go watch my original video. This is going to be more of a highlights reel because most of this stuff is the same, and of course we're going to talk about the stuff that you don't get when you get a base version. The biggest thing that I've noticed with this base version, it does come relatively well equipped, but you do not get automatic headlights. It's crazy to me that in 2024, a vehicle that costs $30,000+ does not get automatic headlights. I can't conceive of that. So if you have your headlights on and you turn the car off, you open your car door, it's going to yell at you, it's going to keep those lights on. I thought we've done away with that. Every car should have automatic headlights. You also don't get things like heated seats in here. You wouldn't exactly expect that in a base model, but what is nice, you do get a heated steering wheel. Outside of that, the build quality feels very similar. I would say the Limited trim that I was in just feel a little more insulated, especially on door close, but overall this is a well-made vehicle, and that's something that I mentioned in the original Prius video. Another thing that I mentioned in the original Prius video is, for tall drivers, be wary. Not to say that this is not a car that someone who's tall couldn't drive, but there are some compromises here. Ingress, egress with this low roof line is a problem. It's shaped aerodynamically, and it really cuts into you being able to easily get in and out. If you're taller, like myself at 6'1", and also the gauge cluster, which if I get in a the wheel in a position that I enjoy, meaning that I can easily get it in and out, my knees aren't hitting it, then also I can't see the gauge cluster. I can't see the speed on it. So that's really annoying. These are things that I mentioned in the original video. But otherwise, that car had leather seats. This is, of course, getting cloth at the base layer, but they are relatively supportive, and I will say they're, of course, manually adjustable. The thing that you do miss out on, though, is lumbar support, and that is something that I would really like. Rear seats, just like we talked about in the original video, not enough headroom for me at 6'1". Like, I can't fit back there comfortably, although there is enough leg room, so that is nice. Take what you will. The infotainment is going to be the same, and it's modern Toyota, which it's very straightforward and very good, and you're also getting physical controls here for your HVAC. So overall, high marks in here. Obviously, base version, we're missing a couple things. Let's get this thing out on the road and see how this handles some snow without all-wheel drive. Snow test in the Prius Prime. I am foot to the absolute floor. Oh boy, this is not a good sign. This is not a good start. I think the biggest Achilles heel of this car is the fact that it's not offered with all-wheel drive. Now, a bit of a caveat to that because, oh boy, tires are more important than front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, all-wheel drive. We can say that for sure. We'll get to tires, but the fact that you can option this thing out to like 40 grand with the higher trim level models, and you can't get all-wheel drive, it just doesn't make it practical for anyone who lives in a snowy climate realistically. I mean, you could put winter tires on here, and I think that would help a lot. And once again, we'll get to the tires. But when you can just buy a regular Prius and get the all-wheel drive setup, that car has an electric motor in the rear, which makes it all-wheel drive. It makes this a tough sell in this kind of scenario. Yeah, this thing is really struggling for traction. I mean, the tires. Okay, so these are Ecotopia tires, and the problem with fuel-efficient, energy-saving tires is that they're realistically even worse in the winter, right? They're low rolling resistance tires, which basically means less traction. Now, of course, they are quote-unquote all season, but as you can tell, I'm staying on just side roads here because I really don't even want to take this thing on regular roads. And this isn't even that much snow. This is like, what, 2 inches of snow? Just a dusting of snow. And yeah, you could do it with winter tires, but to me, if you're in a winter climate, I think it makes more sense to get the regular Prius, get the all-wheel drive, throw some snow tires on that thing in the winter, then you'll be better off. But the fact that you don't even have that option here, I would not, even with winter tires, winter focus tires, I still would not want to be driving this in snowy conditions. There's just not enough traction. All right, it's thawed out a little bit. We have some mostly drier roads. What is the Prime like to drive on a normal basis? Even if you live in a snowy climate, that's only one time a year, right? So what is this thing like? Well, just like the regular Prius, this is honestly a fantastic vehicle. There are some shortcomings, which we will get into. We've already talked about the snow piece, but when it comes to on-road capability, it handles actually really well, and the suspension is actually really well set up as well. It deals with bumps extremely well. It feels like a more premium vehicle in that regard. No, it's not like super soft, but I always do this test where there's a speed hump by my house that I like to drive over at a reasonable speed, but without like crawling over like most people would a speed bump. And essentially, it copes with that so well. The damping is set up well. The bad cars, or cars with crummy suspension at least, will like, the rebound will immediately hit the bump stops, and like it's all bad. When you do it in this car, it's really good. Bumps around town, not a problem. And it's calibrated really well. Like, it drives just like a regular car, and I think that's a good thing for a lot of people. They want this to be approachable and not a science experiment. The brake is intuitive and feels normal, even though there's obviously a lot of things going on between gas engine, electric motors, etc. The acceleration, right now I'm in combined mode, I'm in hybrid vehicle mode. It's quick, just like the other one that we drove. It's actually really quick. What's interesting though is I'm gonna press this button now, and I'm gonna change it to EV mode, which is gonna kill the motor. Now we're just in electric vehicle mode. And I'll put my foot down. It is significantly slower in electric vehicle only mode. We already talked about, it's not getting all that 220 horsepower. That 220 horsepower is combined horsepower, the gas engine plus the electric motors. Now, the nice part is you get instantaneous torque with the electric motor, but it just isn't anywhere near as quick to accelerate in full combined mode. So that is something to keep in mind. Not that you're necessarily going to need that to be like a speed demon in this car, but when we talk about the new Prius being very fast, like frankly fast, you have to keep in mind that's only when it's in hybrid vehicle mode, when it's using both gas and electric powertrain together. Overall, the safety suite is quite nice. The lane centering, the adaptive cruise control is quite good. I'm going to go back to hybrid vehicle mode here. But there are a lot of alerts. I don't know if you noticed that when I was turning on this main road just not too long ago, it gave this like cross traffic alert, even though I was just like creeping up, like preparing to turn right. There's a lot of alerts going on in here. It's a little too hypersensitive. Some of this stuff you can obviously turn off within the infotainment, and to a certain extent I would. I mean, I like safety features, don't get me wrong, but that kind of stuff is in the way. The other reason I wanted to do this route, outside of kind of showing the acceleration and everything like that, is ultimately because it's we're doing 50 miles an hour roughly, give or take. On the highway or above 45, there is quite a bit of road noise. I was a little surprised by that. It was like that in the last Prius I drove as well. These tires, low rolling resistance, I think they're pretty loud. There's no wind noise really, but it's all road noise. And for a car that is otherwise like really well screwed together and feels pretty solid, feels actually pretty premium for the price and well built, that's really my only big complaint, outside of some of the stuff with me being a little bit taller, getting in and out, being able to see the gauge cluster. Otherwise, this is a fantastic vehicle, and honestly, for 32 grand, if you can find it for that price, I don't think Toyota's making a whole ton of these prime model ones, and they're going to be in high demand. But if you live in California, or you live in a place that doesn't really have inclement weather, you don't have to worry about all-wheel drive, and this is a fantastic vehicle. If you do need all-wheel drive, you live in a place like Colorado, I'd probably personally go with the regular hybrid version just so I could get that all-wheel drive. So this car is fantastic. It's not for everyone though. Taller drivers beware. As I've already said, sit in it, make sure it works for you before you just kind of order one, because like we've already talked about, they're a little bit sparse on dealer lots, and don't let a dealer say, oh, well, you got to put money down before you sit in one. Definitely hold out on that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did and you made it this far, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Consider hitting that like and subscribe button so I can see you on the next one. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and drive this really remaining beautiful day here in Colorado. See you guys in the next one.